What's going on, people? It's your boy back for the 19th time because my laptop is trash. He was trying to go trash on me right there too, but I'm gonna see if I can fight through it. Yeah. I should do a sacrifice. Give me a better laptop, better equipment. But anywho, enough of that. Back with another fun, exciting video. Uh, you know, as I said before, I said this a few times. I really don't have no real process for making these videos. I just find like a meme, find a creative way to put some hex or post chain logos on it, and then start rambling. But this time I actually worked in reverse order. I wanted to specifically bring back a video, and we're going to talk about 5555 because obviously at the time of this video, it might have been like a few days since the newest influencer has come into crypto or into the hex space, the post chain space, and totally came and flipped things upside down by their either intentional lack of understanding of how hex works or they're just coming in to cause chaos and mayhem. But either way, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Um, I've been blessed to have been in the real world and understand how real markets move and the things that move them. And I can almost say without a shadow of a doubt is that Elon Musk wouldn't buy Postchain because he sees some rando Twitter people speaking bad about it. Elon Musk would not buy Postchain because he and his research team would have determined that it's not a good investment or they don't like this, that, and the third. Twitter does not move the needle, people. I cannot say that enough. It doesn't. People on Twitter are not onboarding serious investors. Now, when I say serious investors, I'm not saying that maybe a person that want to spend a couple $100,000 would look at Twitter and be like, "Oh, that community is toxic." Fine, but that's literally everything, right? People don't like Trump, but I bet you they still own stock in Truth Social, right? Because that's just, like I said before, money has no morality when it comes to this. It's really, can you make me money? Can you make my money multiply? People don't. People there. Yeah, there's no ethics when it comes to it, right? So it's foolish to say that to think that because this guy comes and calls something that he obviously doesn't know anything about or didn't care to research, he just saw easy mark as most people do and come and spout shit for engagement to call something as revolutionary as a 5555 stake predatory. You know, it's asinine. And you know, when it comes down to the real world, as I like to say, you want to try to recreate things that has, some kind of name recognition, some kind of, you know, solves addresses a problem and just different things like that, right? The day-to-day person nowadays only thinks day to day, right? But if you can imagine a time long, long, long ago, 25 plus years ago, where people actually planned for retirement. Think about when people actually used to save for their kids' college fund. Think about when people used to actually defer money to a later date by putting it into some kind of index fund or whatever and letting compound interest do most of the heavy lifting over a long period of time, right? That used to be a thing. That used to be the strategic measurement of, investment tools, right? That, hey, if you hold this for, if you put your money into this, if you keep it in there longer, it pays better, right? The problem with the U.S. Treasury bonds right now is that the short term pay better than the long term, which is a big deal. Because obviously, when you're selling treasuries to different countries, you want them to hold them shits for 30 plus years till they come to maturity, and then you pay them 30 years in the future, right? You don't want the 5 year paying more interest than the 30 years. That's when you start to get in trouble. So, when Richard set out to create Hex, and I've watched a lot of Richard interviews, and I'm not going to expect the average person that just learned about Richard to go back and watch all his interviews and digest it because, if I'm being frank, most of the people on Twitter, they're not. looking to get that deep into it. They're just hoping that Pulse Chain does a 10x, right? That's the reason why they can only comprehend a 10x, because they don't understand how these things are made, right? They don't understand what can really happen when you fucking print 60 to 80% of all money that's ever existed in the last 5 years. How high and how stupid high things can go, right? So, but one thing Richard talks about is, when he talks about the creation of Hex, and he talks about how it started off with one thing and then they just kind of start morphing into this other thing, which eventually became Hex, and the power of having a 15-year commitment to something, right? And the power of, if you don't at least meet these rules, you won't get your money back, right? You actually lose everything, right? And one important thing that he said that made me like, because I learned about Hex after being introduced to it, right? I didn't have a understanding of things before I invested in it. That's why it took me 6 months before I did my first stake, honestly. And my first stake was only like 5,000 Hex for I had like 20,000 Hex. I did 5,000 for 6 months, 5,000 for a year, every 6 months, right? So I didn't even understand staking when I bought Hex. But this is why research is so important, and that's why we're going to win so hard, because the more research you are on it, the more it's just obvious, right? But let me get back on point. He talks about why you can't do exactly what this person did and expect to get any of your money back. And the reason, or the bulk of that reason, is because you are taking a better T-share rate from people when you do this, right? So if one person comes and sucks up a large part of the T-share rate, right? They have to honor that, because the person that comes after them now gets a less better deal, right? They get a less better deal because they came second, or they didn't stake as long, or they didn't stake as much. So you get the better deal by being early, by bigger and longer, right? No Diddy. That was wild. so so that's why you incur such a harsh penalty if you don't fulfill that requirement. It's very simple, right? You can't in and the problem with why people can't seem to comprehend this is because they don't believe there should be any accountability or any consequences for you not being a man or woman of your word and honoring your commitment. You join the military, you sign that 6 year oath of you sign that 6 year enlistment, guess what, buddy? Your ass is in there for 6 years unless one, you do something really stupid and they kick you out. Two, you get medically discharged, or three, you do the 6 years, right? And as I told a lot of my troops, the easiest way out is just to do the fucking 6 years. Don't go out and try to get discharged, because you end up causing more problems for yourself, right? So that is really the premise of our society, whether you like it or not. If you sign a contract, you need to have researched, you need to have done your due diligence, right? And then you do that. This person proclaimed that there's nothing else where they take 100% of your shit if you don't honor the contract. Okay, don't go pay your taxes on your house. I bet you they take 100% of your fucking house. That is the whole purpose of a contract. Calling it predatory, that's just like this. I don't obviously. I think this person may not be of America, be from America. I don't know, because in America, a predatory loan is the kind that when they sell you a 96 Toyota Corolla, you're paying $600 a month, you got a 2,000% APY. That's predatory. You, okay, let me walk through this in real time. You taking money from your bank account, sending it to an exchange, a centralized exchange, buying Ethereum, then sending that money to your MetaMask or whatever wallet you use, then bridging it over to Pulse Chain, then swapping that wrapped ETH or DAI or whatever you choose for Hex, then going to a whole nother website, going staking, putting 5 in there, hitting yes, and then waiting to the day rollover to start the stake is in no way, shape, or form predatory. In that instance, Richard, Hex, nobody forced you to do any one of those steps. But how can you explain this to people who vision is literally next week. They don't have the vision of a long term. But that's why the people will win the hardest. Think about this, right? Let's put this hex shit into perspective, right? I'm gonna talk about e-hex too. Somehow I'm gonna get around to it. Bitcoin just turned 16 years old on January 3rd, right? So it's legally able to drive in at least Georgia, right? I just went and did some research before I got on here and start rambling. January 3rd of last year, 2024, when it turned 15, it was at roughly $45,000 a coin, right? So, hypothetically speaking, if one of the reasons why Hex was made, because if you just buy and hold, you tend to do better than every other method, right? That just seems to be proven throughout most of human history. Just buying and holding is better, which is the whole premise of this concept. If you could have theoretically bought Bitcoin at 1 cent on January 3rd, 2009, excuse me, and you staked it for 15 years, and you got 15 years worth of yield, and then your stake came due last January, you would have not only been up 4.5 million X on your money, but you probably would have been up another 10 plus million X on yield alone. Now, I know, right? It's hard to think that it could all just really be this simple, but in the grand scheme of things, it really all is this simple. That if you're into something good and you're into it early, that it's more likely going to be more valuable because more people are going to learn about it later than they do now. It's called the network effect. This is not revolutionary stuff I'm talking about. This is all what the OG Hexicans learned when they started this period, whether they knew Richard, whether they was following Richard pre-Hex, when it was Bitcoin Hex, to the time it launched. And this is kind of stuff we don't talk about. As Michael Irvin once said, we're losing receipts, excuse me. Or did he say recipes? We're losing recipes, excuse me. I'm misquoting. We're losing the recipes because nobody's talking about this stuff no more. So now we have a wave of new people coming in who know shit about shit, and they come and they say dumb shit like this, right? There's a lot of dumb shit that has been said, and it's going to continue to be said because the basics. The funny thing about getting back to the basics is that you realize how easy this shit could be, right? Of course, hex price has been down for 3 years. That's no secret. That's no secret. That's no secret to nobody. But remember this: why? Why was the big payday? Why were there so many coins just kind of just minted whether it's through the adoption amplifier, through big payday, through all this? Why was this, right? Because the plan was to get the hyperinflationary part out the way. If you really think about it, think about this, right? And this is why Hex, in my opinion, is just such a great asset. It's because all the things that Bitcoin did, Hex tried to figure out, hey, how could Bitcoin have been done better with the opportunity of hindsight? Remember, hindsight is always 2020, right? If Bitcoin had this, if Bitcoin had that, right? How could it have been done better, right? And the people tend to realize or tend to think that you know a 10,000 bitcoins being bought for a pizza was great shit, right? But back in those days, when you could get Bitcoin for free, as Richard said, every 10 minutes, 50 block rewards come to your thing, it was hyperinflationary. Remember, the best time to buy it when one person owned all the supply, when you couldn't get it nowhere, there's no liquidity, and it was hyperinflationary, right? People talk about it now as if Bitcoin didn't go from 0 coins to 19 million. That happened. So if you get that all out the way, then you're left with, okay, there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of coins, and therefore it takes longer for those people that had all the coins to distribute them to the people that come later. And we're just in that portion of this, right? But think about it in this sense, right? Those people are slowly either one losing their place, their T-share hold rate, right? They're selling at the lows, and they're more people are coming in and buying these coins, right? And this is all on chain. Like, this is nothing more than a few clicks on a website to see how much Hex is in liquidity pools and how many sharks are no longer sharks and stuff like that. Like, this This could all be done with some simple research, but we live in a time where nobody wants to do any fucking research. So it's left for people to come on the internet and talk about it, right? So we're in the process. We've had a 3 year period of people going from a lot of coins to maybe middle amount of coins to some people who just completely sold all the way out. People did that in Bitcoin. This is not this is nothing new under the sun. This has happened, right? So people have done that in Bitcoin. There's people that had hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that now own nothing. And now they're looking at like, shit, I should have not sold everything at $100. Right? So the same thing's happening with Hex. I know this for a fact because I have increased my bags over the last few years dramatically. Numbers I thought I would never see as far as quantity. Dramatically increased them. So most smart investors know that the longer something is kept in a tight range, when it finally breaks out, it runs harder because there's less people to do what? Richard always says this, to sell higher. There's less people to do it, right? So we've been on a 3 year downtrend, but Hex ain't stopped working. People are still buying it. What happens when it finally does break to the upside? What happens when the trillions of dollars start really flowing into this space? Because it hasn't happened yet. We've had money come to the space, but we're really 500. I think I seen something that said that the last market topped out at 3 trillion market cap, and we're at like 3.5 or 3.6 trillion. So realistically, we're only like 600 billion more than last market, but we're expecting trillions to come into the space. What happened then? Remember how these things run. I mean, look at Trump token. Look at how it ran, right? It's still running. 500, $600 million worth of liquidity is still running. I mean, we're just in it. And the people who, there's a lot of people that are saying like, oh, I don't want to be state because last time I watched my bag go all the way up and come back down. And that's true. But the staking is not about you. The staking is about your future self. That's what staking is about. You know, there are some people that will come in here and tell you that EHEX has no chance in hell of being, this, that, and the third. But there's literally no problem with buying. Let's just say you bought $5,000 worth of EHEX today and staked it out 15 years. Now you have a time period of ETH having a 15-year window to get its shit together. That's a legitimate investment strategy. 15 years from now really moves fast, man. I'm It was 15 years ago I joined the military. You couldn't have convinced me that it would move this fast. Time is so relative and linear. And even if you didn't want to do it for yourself, think about people you may want to do it for. That's the other thing. X is the ultimate gift to anybody you care about in the future. You got some little baby kids? Little baby kids. You got some little kids? Give them a couple 15-year stakes. You don't even gotta buy much. Just imagine this. Say you got 3 kids and you got them all, because the price is so low today. Let's say you got them all 10,000 hex. All right. Actually, hold on a second. Let me talk and do this for a second. I'm gonna go see how much 10,000 E hex and 10,000 P hex is today, right? How much it would cost you to get that. So bear with me while I do this research on the shit that I should have had ready when I got here. So 10,000 post chain hex today is $130, right? And 10,000 Ethereum hex is $26. So you're talking about $150. You get them on both chains. You stake them both 15 years. If hex is $1 in 15 years, right? So you got 15 years for it to reach $1. That's $10,000 plus all the yield they're going to get. Now maybe in the future $10,000 ain't worth shit. Maybe in the future $10,000 is worth $20. Is what $20 is today. But what if it's not? What if hex in 15 years is $25? What if it's $100? Right? Think about this. Think about this, people. If you'd have told people 15 years ago when they were mining Bitcoin and they're libertarian and this is a way out, that Bitcoin would be $100,000, they would have laughed you out the room. They said there's literally no way in hell. They would say things like, that means it got to be bigger than Amazon. And you look at Amazon, actually not Amazon 2009. They were like, this is going to be bigger than Microsoft, or it's going to be bigger than Apple. And then you look at it, you're like, there's no way. Apple does business all over the world. It sells a trillion fucking iPhones every other day. There's no way you could have comprehended it. But if you could have stayed Bitcoin for 15 years, you would be sitting fatter than a rat locked in a cheese factory. And you would be winning. So we sit here on the precipice of greatness, and people are coming out and saying that the fact that you don't honor your commitment is predatory. See, these are people that actually think Twitter moved the needle. Twitter does not move the needle. As I said in my last video, money has no morality, and the people who are investing in these things are looking to make more money tomorrow than they had today. They don't care about none of this shit. You think they look at Twitter and see somebody behind a fucking profile picture of some silly shit and think that they're gonna be like, you think, first of all, let's just say JP Morgan crypto division was looking to invest in new coins, right? Allocate some of their portfolio. Do you think they're going to be on Twitter in the trenches reading fucking people who don't know shit about shit and like, hey, I seen this person, fart sucker 69420 said that Hex is a scam, so we should stay away from it. Do y'all really believe that actually happens? Y'all can't be that naive. Y'all can't be that silly. Y'all can't be that dumb. But there's a lot of people that are that dumb, right? There's a lot of people that'll tell you that staking really doesn't have no value, except for the fact that literally almost every major investment of our lifetime has been proven that if you buy something that's good and you bought it early and you hold it for a longer period of time, it literally is more expensive. You buy a house today and the housing market goes up 15 years later, you can sell that house for more than you bought it today, right? Crypto, stocks, ETFs, they all go up, right? They all go up because they continuously print the dollar. It's just that simple. It's not really rocket science. Except for this one actually has a mathematical formula that is so innovative and so proven that that the T-share rate is revolutionary in many ways because there's nothing like it. Nobody's ever been able to recreate it. And everybody who's tried has failed horribly and miserably. Except for you're in a token on literally two different chains that has been inexpensive to buy for 3 years that you could have did this. If you did a 15-year stake when the shit first came out, you're more than a third of the way done of this race, right? And so it perplexes me, just but that's what happens, right? The people who the first generation of Hexicans, they don't talk about this stuff no more. They rarely talk about Hex as it is. And cui bono, right? To whom does it benefit? Well, it benefits the people that actually know what they hold. It benefits the people that are still buying Hex and staking Hex. It's just that simple. This is not going anywhere. It's had a flawless, perfect uptime. Solana is down today. People are not getting their coins because Trump meme coin has crashed the system, right? So Hex user unaffected is a real thing. The only thing that's affected us is the price. And mainly that is because of fucking the SEC and shit. But think about this, man. The sitting president just launched a meme coin 2 days before he assumes power. The head of the SEC, all these people are quitting. Richard shit is going to be wrapped up soon. And we're going to see a pump. My Richard Hargo live stream notification come on. All this shit pumping 10x anyway. All it takes is, you know what? All it takes to pump Hex and everybody's going to stop bitching and moaning and realize that they sold their future way too early is Richard live stream. Because once that happened and people actually confirm that it's Richard, and I mean, I've always knew it's Richard, right? Because if it wasn't, you can't sue a dead man. Do people not realize that? There's so many people saying, like, maybe it's not Richard, maybe Richard died, or all this other stupid stuff. You can't sue no dead man. Do you think that the enforcement arm of the federal government would be suing a dead man, and it wouldn't have came out that this person is no longer living, right? They would have sued his estate. They would have sued the people that is put into place to manage his affairs. This is how silly people have gotten. You think Interpol would be putting out a notice for a person that wasn't alive? So Richard Hart go live. This shit pumps 10, 15x easy. And then we're back on schedule. And meanwhile, all the people who have done nothing but cry, bitch, and moan for the last 3 years when Hex was literally at these lows, when Pulse was at these lows, when Pulse X was literally at these lows, they're all going to be wishing and begging they could have bought lower because that's how it always goes. I'll leave you fine people with this as we come up on 25 minutes. To quote the urban street poet 50 Cent, nothing changes in this game but faces and names, right? Meaning everything is always the same. The only thing that changes is the players, the people. You just change the face and name, but it's still the same gimmick. It's still delay buying something early today. Buying something good early will always be worth more later. That's just how this shit goes. And we're entering the golden era of crypto. I called the golden era of crypto when Trump survived the attempt on his life, the first one. Then I called it again when Trump actually won the presidency, right? And I'm calling it again. The man launched a fucking meme coin that outperformed literally almost every investment tool in the last like 10 years, I think was the stat I read. And it did that in like 3 hours. You know, we can only save so many people. And the people who listen, there's a lot of people that don't know anything about anything. They were just lucky to be here early or they were lucky to hear about it. But they're stupid, so they won't continue to be blessed. These are the people that eventually trick themselves out of things, end up being broke. It's called sudden wealth syndrome for a reason. But the real that have took these last 3 years to learn, to build their positions, to build strategies, that's gonna be who remains. It's just that simple. So that being said, man, I wish you find people a great day. And just remember, man, there's nothing wrong with a 5555 stake, man. This is what it's made for. It's made for tough times like this. Tough times like this where you can't go and crash out. And the people who crash out, guess what? They just crash out and put more money in our pockets. So I keep on crashing out. Keep on ending those native stakes pre big payday stakes. That yield is delicious. I think one day it was like 15 hex per T share. I got a couple big stakes that are a lot of T shares. I take them because in 12, 13 years when my shit starts maturing, shit, I plan on already being rich. This is gonna be the icing on top of This is gonna be the cherry on top of the icing on top of a already very delicious cake. And with that, I bid you find people to do. Just remember, we're back, baby. We're back. All you gotta do is be in it to win it.